Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about a recipe modification to fit the DASH diet. This is going to be Chipotle made at home. So first we're going to look through the Chipotle nutrition menu, and so we're just going to make a bowl that we can recreate. So we're choosing chicken. On here you can select whether it's normal or double. We're going to go with normal. And then scrolling down, we're going to choose a brown rice option just for more whole grains. Then we're going to select black beans, the fajita vegetables, fresh salsa, guacamole, cheese, and sour cream. And then we're going to go in and see, some lettuce too. We're going to go in and look at what the nutrition facts are about this bowl specifically. So looking at this, you see the calories, total fat, saturated fat, and sodium. Those are the main things we're going to want to be looking at here. So just making sure that we want to keep that sodium and fat lower in this case. So we're going to move into making this bowl. So first I'm just cutting up a pepper. This is a green pepper so we can make the fajita vegetables. So I'm just cutting up it off of the seeds and the core. And then I'm going to be slicing them into smaller, thin slices to replicate the fajita vegetables at Chipotle. Just slicing them up smaller. It's important to have a sharp knife to help with this process. But then moving into the onion, we're going to do the same thing, cut them up into those thin slices to mimic the fajita vegetables. So again, a sharp knife is going to benefit you, but we're working with what we have. So cutting off both ends of the onion and then cutting it right down the middle in half. And then you're going to be just slicing it. So I'm checking the direction and then just slicing straight down, cutting it in half, making those thin slices. Just showing you guys more how I'm cutting those so you can see, just making sure they're in those thin slices. So an important thing to note with this is that a lot of times at Chipotle they are cooking with a lot of salt instead of just different seasonings that would not include salt, raising that sodium really high. So we're just showing you how it's all cut up. And then we're going to move to an extra virgin olive oil, which is going to be only 2 grams of saturated fat. So it's a good option. I'm going to be measuring 1 teaspoon of this extra virgin olive oil into the pan. So I'm just showing you. Again, this is going to be higher in that mono unsaturated fat, which is the type of fat we want to focus on for our heart health. So just moving the vegetables into the pan with the 1 teaspoon of heated olive oil. Moving them in, we're just going to saute them and get them nice and caramelized and brown, as you'll see in a sooner clip. Alright, and so then once the vegetables are in the pan, you're just going to kind of watch them and move them around occasionally. All you're going to add to this is pepper, and then the vegetables will be nice and flavorful themselves. So nice and caramelized, looking like that. And then we're going to move on to the brown rice for whole grains, just showing you that it has more fiber. And we're going to do 1 cup of rice to 3.5 cups of water. And then we're going to move on to zesting a lime. This is to replicate the Chipotle's cilantro lime rice. So I'm just zesting a lime to put into that rice recipe. If you don't have a zester, it's okay. We're just going to be using the lime juice as well. So I'm just showing you the lime juice and the zest once it's completed. And then we're going to move on to adding it all into the pans or pot with the rice once the rice is cooked. So that cilantro and that lime juice, mixing it all in with the rice, just making sure that, you have the zested lime. And I took the cilantro and cut it up nice and small to go in there. And then we're moving to black beans. So this one is a no salt added. It only has 5 milligrams of salt or sodium. So we're just going to use this and make sure that we're washing it to get any excess of that sodium off and making sure that, we remove any additional sodium from it. Then we're going to move in and put some of that extra virgin olive oil into the pan. Again, just 1 teaspoon. I'm eyeballing it here, but you can measure it with a teaspoon. And so, you can see it's just at the bottom of the pan, and we're going to move in to put the black beans into the pan as well. And I'm just going to talk you through the seasonings. I have Chipotle seasoning, chili powder, and this is supposed to be cumin, but I accidentally grabbed the curry powder, so I'll just be using the chipotle and chili powder for now. I would recommend using Mrs. Dash. They have a southwestern seasoning. I just was not able to find it, but I wanted to show you that I use this salt-free Mrs. Dash seasoning, and it's 0 milligrams of sodium, so it's a great option. But I'm just going to add the chili powder into the black beans, some black pepper, and some of the chipotle powder. Again, if I had the cumin, I would use that. This is 1 cup of water. And then you're just going to heat the black beans and stir them occasionally. Now I'm moving to the chicken. So I'm just going to cut up some garlic. I'm going to mince it small, but this is just showing you that you can cut it into thin slices as well. And they'll work just as good because they'll have the seasonings and flavor for the chicken. Alright, so then we're going to take the garlic and put it into the same pan we use for the vegetables. It doesn't have to be washed so that we can use those same flavors from the vegetables. And a teaspoon of olive oil, we're going to put the garlic in, and then we're going to take the chicken and we're going to start to season it. So I'm using chicken breast. Now Chipotle uses chicken thighs, which are going to be higher in fat, and it's that saturated fat. So that's why I chose to do chicken breast, to kind of reduce that saturated fat in this area as well. So I'm taking Chipotle powder, and again, I would use that Mrs. Dash Southwestern seasoning if I had found it, but in this case, I'm just using Chipotle powder. And it's a bit spicy, but I'm just spreading it around. So if you want a little bit less spice, you can always add a little bit less of this seasoning, but just making sure that it's coated. I'm using that, and I'm using the chili powder as well, and just covering them up. You can also add some black pepper onto them as well, then moving them to the pan to saute them and cook them. Alright, and then once the chicken is fully cooked, you're going to take it to a cutting board and cut it up small to replicate those small chipotle pieces as well. So I'm just cutting them up nice and small, and then I'm going to move them back into a pan once it's all cut up into those even slices. This way I can just kind of add any additional seasonings and heat it back up so that it's perfect temperature. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some toppings. So this is mild salsa to replicate the salsa at Chipotle. This does have salt added as an ingredient, but what I was looking for was something that was low in sodium. So this is 35 milligrams for 2 tablespoons. And then the guacamole, which is a favorite, I wanted to find something that was in the lower range as well. So anything below 140 milligrams is something that is a go. So this is 135 milligrams. Don't have too much of it, but it can be done. So then talking about a sour cream, which would have saturated fat in it, I found a low fat one, and another option is the plain Greek yogurt, which is going to have no fat, but it might have a little bit more sodium. So always just making sure that you're checking those 2 numbers. Alright, so then finally we're going to plate everything. So this is the brown rice on the plate and adding some black beans. I actually forgot to add the fajita veggies, but then I added the chicken salsa, a tablespoon of the guac, and a tablespoon of the sour cream. I put mine on the side, but whatever you like. I also sliced up some romaine lettuce and sprinkled it on top. And now this is the cheese, low-fat option. And just making sure you're watching the sodium because this does have 150 milligrams. Now, just to compare, the bowl from Chipotle had 1,020 calories and 2,000 milligrams of sodium. And those are the numbers that you see on the right that we had calculated in the beginning of this video. So then I went ahead and calculated our bowl, and it had 416 milligrams of sodium. So you can kind of ignore the goal that is stated here and just focus on the total value. So yeah, the sodium had 416 milligrams as compared to that 2,000 milligrams, which is a great achievement because we really want to keep that sodium lower. Now we can move into saturated fat. Now the saturated fat in the Chipotle bowl was 19.5 grams, which is very high, and we want to be trying to keep that much lower. So in our bowl, we only had 7 grams of saturated fat. So we really accomplished the overall goal here of reducing the sodium and saturated fat of what would normally be in a Chipotle bowl by making something that is Dash Diet modified for an at-home meal. So it's really great. Just make sure that you're looking for those salt-free seasonings like Mrs. Dash, choosing no salt added black beans, and really eliminating that additional table salt that would be added at Chipotle. And then also focusing on choosing those options that have less saturated fat. So that's things like the olive oil and the chicken breast instead of the chicken thighs, choosing a low-fat mozzarella cheese, and a low-fat sour cream. So all of these things combined were able to reduce the sodium and the saturated fat significantly. And also it went from 1,020 calories to just 524, which you can see in the top left corner was the calorie amount of our bowl. So I hope that this recipe modification video has been helpful, and if you've been recently diagnosed with high blood pressure, I hope that this can be an easy and informative video for you guys to try and incorporate some new and different things in your diet that will have that reduced sodium and reduced saturated fat. Thank you.